You are not mostly human. Right now, as you watch this, more than half the cells in your body, by raw count, do not belong to you. They have their own DNA, their own agenda, and science is only beginning to understand how much control they actually have. Fact number 1, you are 57% bacteria by cell count, not 90%, the real number is even stranger. For decades, textbooks repeated a dramatic claim: the human body contains 10 times more bacterial cells than human cells. That figure was everywhere. Schools taught it. Doctors repeated it. It felt almost poetic: you're basically a walking bacterial colony. Then in 2016, cell biologist Ron Sender and his team at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel actually ran the numbers properly. The real ratio? Approximately 1.3 to 1. About 38 trillion microbial cells to roughly 30 trillion human cells. That means you are approximately 57% microbial by cell count. But here's the twist: the corrected number isn't less shocking. It's more shocking. Because it means the margin is razor thin. You are barely, and we mean barely, in the numerical majority in your own body. And that margin shifts every single time you go to the bathroom, because you shed billions of bacteria with every bowel movement. Right after using the restroom, your human cells are actually briefly in the lead. You become more human every time you flush. That sentence should not be a real sentence, and yet, here we are. Fact number 2, your gut microbiome weighs as much as your brain. If you scooped out every microorganism living in and on your body and put them on a scale, you would be looking at approximately 1.5 to 2 kilograms of microbial mass, roughly 3.3 to 4.4 pounds. Your brain weighs about 1.4 kilograms. So the invisible ecosystem inside you is, pound for pound, competing with the most complex structure in the known universe for sheer mass. The vast majority of that weight, over 99%, lives in your large intestine, specifically in a section called the colon. 1 single milliliter of fluid from your colon contains up to 1 billion individual bacteria. That's 1 billion living, metabolizing, reproducing organisms in a space smaller than a sugar cube. The diversity is equally staggering. A healthy human gut hosts between 500 and 1,000 distinct bacterial species. Each one plays a role so specific that removing just one species can cascade into measurable health consequences. Scientists at Stanford University demonstrated in 2021 that a high-fiber diet alone changed the microbial species composition within 2 weeks. The ecosystem inside you is responding to every meal you eat, in real time. Fact number 3, your microbiome has its own unique genetic fingerprint, and it's larger than yours. Here is a number that will genuinely stop you mid-thought. The human genome, the complete set of genetic instructions that makes you, contains approximately 20,000 to 25,000 protein-coding genes. That is the blueprint for every cell, every organ, every biological process in your body. Now hold that number. The collective genome of your microbiome, called the metagenome, contains an estimated 3.3 million unique genes. That is over 150 times more genetic information than your own DNA carries. Your microbiome is not a passenger in your body. Genetically speaking, it overwhelms you. Researchers involved in the Human Microbiome Project, launched by the National Institutes of Health in 2008, spent years cataloging this microbial DNA and found that the genetic diversity between 2 random humans' microbiomes can be as dramatic as the genetic difference between a human and a fruit fly. You and your best friend might share 99.9% of your human DNA, but your gut microbiomes could be wildly, almost incomparably different. Every human is genetically near identical at the DNA level, and yet microbially, we are all strikingly alien to one another. Fact number 4, bacteria in your gut send chemical signals directly to your brain, and may influence your mood. This is where the science goes from fascinating to genuinely unsettling. Your gut and your brain are connected by a dedicated biological superhighway called the vagus nerve, a sprawling neural cable that runs from your brainstem all the way down to your abdomen. And research published in journals including Nature and Cell has confirmed that gut bacteria are actively using this highway to communicate with your brain. Here is the mechanism. Certain gut bacteria produce neurotransmitters, the same chemical messengers your brain uses to regulate mood, anxiety, and cognition. Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium species, both common in the human gut, produce gamma-aminobutyric acid, known as GABA, which is the brain's primary calming neurotransmitter. Other species produce serotonin precursors. In fact, approximately 90 to 95% of your body's entire serotonin supply is produced in the gut, not the brain. Serotonin is the molecule most closely associated with feelings of well-being and happiness. A 2019 study from the University of Groningen in the Netherlands analyzed gut microbiome data from 1,054 people and found statistically significant correlations between the presence of specific bacterial species and self-reported depression scores. The direction of influence is still being studied. But the channel is real, it is active, and your bacteria are talking to your brain right now. Fact number 5. You inherit your first microbiome from your mother in a single biological event. Every human starts life essentially sterile. In the womb, you are in a near microbe-free environment. Then, at the moment of birth, specifically vaginal birth, you pass through a microbial gauntlet. The birth canal is colonized with specific bacterial species, particularly Lactobacillus, and as a newborn passes through, it is coated, head to toe, with its mother's microbiome. This is not incidental. This is your foundational microbial inheritance. Research from the NIH and Columbia University has shown that babies born vaginally have markedly different microbiome compositions at 6 weeks of age compared to babies born via C-section. C-section-born infants tend to be colonized instead by environmental bacteria, skin microbes from the people in the operating room, hospital surface bacteria, and airborne species. The downstream consequences are measurable. Multiple large-scale studies have found statistical associations between C-section birth and higher rates of conditions including asthma, allergies, and certain immune disorders. Though researchers are careful to note that correlation is not causation and that C-sections are medically necessary in many situations. Some hospitals now perform a procedure called vaginal seeding, swabbing C-section babies with the mother's vaginal microbiome immediately after birth, though this remains under active clinical evaluation. Your microbiome story began in the first seconds of your life, and how that story started shaped everything that followed. Fact number 6. Antibiotics can devastate your microbiome for up to 2 years after a single course. When you take a course of antibiotics, the drug does not discriminate. It cannot distinguish between the harmful pathogen it is targeting and the thousands of beneficial bacterial species that make up your gut ecosystem. A landmark study published in the journal Nature in 2018, led by researchers at the Weizmann Institute, tracked the gut microbiomes of healthy adults after a single 7-day course of broad-spectrum antibiotics. What they found was striking. The microbiomes of most participants had not fully returned to their pre-antibiotic baseline even 6 months after treatment ended. Some specific bacterial species remained depressed or absent for up to a year and a half. In a subset of participants, certain strains were still undetectable at the 18-month mark, the full extent of the study period. The researchers noted that in many cases, antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria moved into the ecological gaps left by the depleted beneficial species, essentially exploiting the vacancy. Probiotics, widely marketed as a recovery tool post-antibiotics, were actually shown in this same study to delay natural microbiome recovery in some participants. The probiotic strains colonized the gut so effectively that they temporarily blocked the original native species from re-establishing. Antibiotics are life-saving medicine. But they come with an ecological cost inside your body that the science now shows lasts far longer than the prescription. Fact number 7. Your skin microbiome is so location-specific, forensic scientists can use it to place you at a crime scene. This one sits at the intersection of microbiology and detective fiction, except it is completely real. Every square centimeter of your skin hosts a distinct microbial community, and the composition changes dramatically depending on the body location. The oily regions, your face, your upper back, are dominated by Cutibacterium species. Your moist areas, like armpits and between toes, host Staphylococcus and Corynebacterium. Your dry regions, like the forearms, carry a completely different profile. But here is the truly wild part. Your personal skin microbiome is so unique that it functions essentially as a biological signature. A 2010 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences demonstrated that researchers could match a computer keyboard to its owner with 70 to 90% accuracy, purely by analyzing the bacterial communities left on the keys and comparing them to swabs from the owner's fingertips. The technique is called microbiome forensics, and by 2023 the FBI had formally included microbial evidence guidelines in its forensic research framework. You leave your microbial fingerprint on every surface you touch. Every door handle. Every phone screen. Every handshake. You are perpetually, invisibly signing your name everywhere you go. Fact number 8, a fecal microbiome transplant, transferring one person's gut bacteria to another, has achieved a 90% cure rate for a dangerous infection that antibiotics repeatedly failed to treat. Save this one. This is the fact that changes the conversation entirely. Clostridioides difficile, commonly called C. diff, is a bacterial infection that causes severe, life-threatening intestinal inflammation. It is responsible for approximately 500,000 infections and 30,000 deaths per year in the United States alone, according to the CDC. It is notoriously difficult to treat because it often strikes patients who have already been depleted by antibiotics, and standard antibiotic treatments for C. diff produce recurrence rates as high as 35 to 65%. The infection keeps coming back. Now here is where it gets extraordinary. Fecal microbiome transplantation, a procedure in which processed stool from a healthy screened donor is transferred directly into the colon of an infected patient, has demonstrated cure rates of approximately 85 to 92% in clinical trials, even in patients who had failed multiple rounds of antibiotic treatment. The logic is almost alarmingly simple. The devastated gut ecosystem of the sick patient is repopulated with the robust, diverse microbiome of a healthy donor, and the beneficial bacteria outcompete the C. diff for resources and space. In January 2023, the FDA approved the first standardized fecal transplant product, a capsule called Vowst, manufactured from donor stool, making this one of the most unusual FDA-approved medications in American medical history. A pill made from someone else's gut bacteria, with a 90% success rate against an infection that was killing tens of thousands of people. The microbiome is not background biology. It is frontline medicine. You started this video as a human being. You end it knowing you are a walking, talking, thinking ecosystem, 38 trillion microbial cells deep, with a collective genome 150 times larger than your own, a mood system partially run by gut bacteria, and a forensic signature you leave on everything you touch. The science of the microbiome is one of the fastest-moving fields in all of biology, and what researchers will discover in the next decade may redefine what it even means to be a human body. Subscribe to Moonlit Minds for daily mind-blowing facts that will change how you see the world.